I'm a faculty member in the East-West Psychology program here at the California Institute of Integral Studies, and on behalf of our whole department, welcome to all of you. Thank you for coming. And you've come, if you're in the right place, to our panel on women researchers on entheogens. And our major theme for tonight is aspects of community, ceremony, and healing. And our presenters, I will introduce one at a time. Each of them will be presenting for about 20 minutes, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions of each individual researcher. Then at the last half hour tonight, we'll have an open discussion. All of us will come to the front and you can ask the whole group discussion questions. So we're hoping to be engaging and give you enough information and food for thought that you have multiple questions for us. So here we go. I'd like to introduce to you, before she comes up, our first speaker. Our first speaker is Dr. Yalila Espinoza, recent graduate of the EWP East-West Psychology program. Yalila is a spiritual health practitioner and intimacy coach who integrates art, music, dream work, ancestral ritual, and sacred plant teachings. She received a PhD and a spiritual counseling training in the East-West Psychology program from CIIS. She offers individual counseling sessions, spiritual erotic awakening groups, and a 9-month sexual initiation program. Please welcome with me Dr. Yalila Espinoza.
Janice. Can everyone hear me? And thank you to the EWP program and to CIS, to all of you here for finding your way, and also to share gratitude for the plant teachers that have touched many of our lives here in this room, and the teachers in human form who have shared their wisdom with us, and also to acknowledge the moon, the Virgo moon. Tonight, is anyone feeling the Virgo energy? It's really strong and beautiful. And the wisdom of connecting in with the owl energy and sitting in a tree and looking out, just witnessing what's happening in the world today, in the world inside us. So I invite you to listen to this with your whole body. We sometimes can get overly focused in our mind, and just to really open our hearts and our guts to tap into the information shared and invite intelligence coming in different ways. This is a story of magic, and there are 3 different kinds of magic. I think you know, black, white, gray. And there's different chapters to this story. Who am I? What am I talking about in terms of the research that I conducted? Why is this important, and how to move forward? One of the primary teachings that I'm sitting with right now is the idea that shamanism, vegetalismo, these plant teachers, this is a power path. And with that power, there is a form of seduction. And as human beings, we love to be seduced. I would say all of us here in one form or another. And so how was I seduced by ayahuasca? I was working in British Columbia in a maternity ward with women who were pregnant and had different problematic substance use and mental health challenges. And the majority of these women were sex trade workers, maybe 90%, and had a history of sexual trauma. And so we would gather in these circles of professionals, beautiful hearted people who were desiring to make a difference in these women's lives. And more often we would be stumped. We really didn't know how to form a treatment plan. And I just saw too many times that these women were falling through the cracks. And I just wondered, you know, there's got to be more. What can I do? And so I was in a ayahuasca journey, and I saw the Golden Gate Bridge, and I was told to move to San Francisco. Luckily, CIS was here, and I entered into the program in East-West Psychology. And I thought, great, you know, this is a time, it's going to be awesome. San Francisco, I get to really dive deep into the teachings around vegetalismo, which is using plant teachers for healing and diagnosing. And what I didn't realize was that this was actually a journey of my personal healing around sexuality. And I had been strongly avoiding this for many years. And I thought, you know, it's safe to stay in the mind and just study and research. And it actually really took a big wake-up call for me. It was the death of my partner who unraveled my foundation. And I didn't really know what was reality and what was illusion. And I went down to Peru for ceremonies, and I got a big wake-up call again. It was interesting because I just assumed that I would go through a process of crying, you know, for hours. I was in deep grief and depressed. And instead I was blessed with amazing ceremonies, like just really connecting with the erotic energy within myself and feeling pleasure for hours and hours. And you know, it's shocking, like, what is this? What's going on? And so when it was time to choose a research question for the academic PhD dissertation, I decided to go down to Peru and diet plants. And I asked, I went down for 3 months. I was in isolation in a tambo in the jungle where I was being fed food twice a day, maybe, if they remembered to give me food. And it was pretty pathetic if you could actually videotape me. And like, learning how to just be in the jungle was the major task. And you know, like, just noticing my attachments to different things and detoxing. And you know, hiding an apple here and there and taking it to my tambo just in case I forgot supper, and just watching my relationship with food, with my thoughts, with the animals there. Everything was just, you know, in the jungle, everything's exaggerated. And it was a beautiful time and a treacherous time as well. And I asked the first night that I was there what my research question would be. And I know some of you have heard this before, and I'll share again. So I was treated with the dream that I was in New York City, Times Square. And I was on a podium with thousands of people watching me have sex with my partner. And there was a Coca-Cola banner around the podium. And I was like, this is not right. How do I turn this into a dissertation? And so I agreed. I was, I'm just going to sit with it. I have 3 months. I have a lot of time to sit with this. And the message just kept coming back to me of, look at your sexuality, look at your relationship with my senses and reviewing my sexual behavior and my perceptions. And it was really challenging for me. I went deep into the shadow around my sexuality and purged every day, through my mouth. And then when I emerged back into San Francisco, I decided to conduct a heuristic research study interviewing other women around their sexuality and what they found in ayahuasca ceremonies and during their plant diets. And spent another 4 years really diving deep into this exploration. Let's see. Briefly, just to make sure we're on the same page, does everyone know what vegetalismo is? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, so you're reading. Vegetalismo, healing practice using plant teachers to diagnose and treat imbalances. So it's a shamanistic practice using plant teachers. And I focused with the Shipibo tradition in Peru. And plant teachers, the idea that these plants have spirits who communicate with humans in various ways. One of the ways, the key ways, is through dream time. And then ayahuasca, everyone's heard of ayahuasca. And the plant diets. Now this is, what I wanted to do was focus the research study on the other master plants as well. Ayahuasca gets so much attention. But these other plant allies are beautiful in terms of healing the emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual realms. So the plant diet can last from a week to a year, or in the Shuar tradition, even 2 years to 5 years. And it's rigorous. Traditionally, people went into the jungle for a year. Only a few people could do this, and with just a blade, and that's it. Maybe a few shirts and pants, and they lived with the plants there, and they learned from the plants all year long. Now, what's happened is that there's been a transformation of this practice, and it's called social dieting, where you can actually diet and drink plants in liquid form every day, and you follow very strict food limitations, and there's no sexual activity. And so it gives people an opportunity to connect with these plants, learn, heal. As well, people can go to various places in South America. There's retreat centers where you can diet plants. And I know that there's a few people in this room who have experienced also the plant diets. And I encourage you to learn more about it. It's just an incredible way to learn about the subtle teachings of plants, and that this is what I believe is where the deep transformation can happen. That's actually an ally in terms of being sustainable transformation in one's journey. Ayahuasca is like the big eye-opener, and then these other plants are the allies, the slow and steady allies. Yeah. So I asked the women in the research study, what's so special about these plants? And I asked myself too. There's so many modalities that are amazing, and especially in the Bay Area. And you combine them and it's very powerful. And so the women that I interviewed, 2 of them said plant medicines are special because many are feminine and motherly. The plants are very subtle, and I find it easier to integrate, especially if there's deep trauma. Another one said, one of the deepest wounds I have is in the area of sexuality. I can go deeply to explore my wounds, and the plants hold space for me, and there's no judgment. And so I will describe based on one woman's story. We'll call her Maya. And she experienced purification in her physical life. She entered into drinking ayahuasca because she had an ovarian cyst. She had irregular menstrual cycles, and she considered herself sick. So she began drinking in ceremonies, and then realized that there was another step that needed to happen. And that's when she was dieting 3 months with Ahosacha. And so this was a process over 2 years. And she was drinking these plants and off and on for 2 years, and then went to the doctor and saw that the ovarian cyst was no longer there. And so she was astonished, like, what is this about? So that led her to more ceremonies and more plant diets. And she realized that around her emotional life, that she had cut off her sense of trusting herself, her intuition, her relationships with her 2 children. This is a nurse in her 40s, had 2 children, a single mom, and that she was looking at all of her relationships and that they were unsatisfactory to her, and she wasn't feeling good about her relationship with her kids. And so she realized after dieting these different plants that she was really tuning in and feeling the emotions, and Morosa was one plant that really helped her connect with her heart. And there was this really profound, deep sense of knowing herself again. What is her truth? And she was able to perceive her reality in a different way. She describes walking around with these different lenses of trauma. So something happened to her when she was 2 and 10 and 20, and she had been, she would describe herself as a sex addict, sleeping with men, women, married, not, all over the board, reckless behavior. And so she was seeing that her lenses were foggy. She couldn't see really clearly. And so with the plant diets, by drinking these plants, she was clearing, like, we clear our windows. So she was clearing these lenses. And, after 4 years or so, she could actually, wait a minute, oh, this is where I am, and this is what I need to do to make changes in my life. And this sense of more confidence and really making decisions with this clear awareness of consequences. And then in the spiritual realm, she noticed with Ahosacha in particular that she had this awakening of a plant marriage, a spirit marriage with Ahosacha. This entity, like, it is a belief that there actually is an entity associated with this plant, and that she was married to Ahosacha, and they were a partnership that carried around and walked in every moment of her life, and that Ahosacha was enjoying the ride as well. This was a symbiotic relationship. Ahosacha spirit got to experience what it's like to be in a human body, and she got to tap into the wisdom of Ahosacha and feel this, like, confidence and clarity. Ahosacha is great for cleaning us. So that's just one experience of the women that I heard. There are many others, and even outside of the research study, I've been hearing so many interesting stories of their transformation around sexuality specifically, because that's what I was focused on. Really? So, in other presentations, I spoke about the shadow in shamanism and the misuse of power and the actual sexual abuse, rape that happens in ceremonies, ethical issues around that. And what I'm going to do instead is back up a bit, look at the big picture. So what does the shadow highlight? And how is sexual trauma expressed in our culture? So health imbalances, sexual violence, sex and love addiction, wounding in relationships between men and women. And for instance, I was looking at the stats, and 10% of Americans in 2012 were on SSRIs. In 2012, there were 2 million cases of diagnosed ovarian cancer. And I'm sure prostate cancer would be up there as well. If anyone knows more up-to-date info, I'd love to hear it. This is an issue. This is the way that it's expressing itself in our physical bodies. And then there's the other levels that, you know, are showing us that we have a skewed relationship with our bodies, with others, with the world around us, that I believe is partly due to a lack of sexual initiations. This is the area that I'm really excited about now, sexual initiations. What is it? Different traditions have different ideas of what initiation is. I like to play with words, so we have the 4 I's. Intention, to honor the rites of passages. Intuition, trust oneself to cross over a threshold. That's one of the primary definitions of initiation for many traditions, is crossing over a threshold. You're actually going into the dark night of the soul and emerging as a new being. And in that journey, there is an intimacy that's built with our allies, other than human allies. And the other key to initiation is integration. So that we are welcomed home into community, that there is a shared sense of perceiving this being as a changed person in the community. Now, with plant teachers, what I was seeing is that these plant diets and these ayahuasca ceremonies are in some ways an initiation, but we just haven't named it that way. And there are fundamental aspects of this initiation that are missing. And one of them is the integration. We have people going down to South America having incredible journeys, massive change, both, you know, challenging and beautiful. And then they come back here, and how is the community, you know, at the airport even, like, welcome, you know, we see you now, like, thank you for having this journey for us, for all of us. That doesn't happen very often. It didn't happen for me. And because it didn't happen for me, I'm now wanting to provide that for other people. What is possible with sexual initiations? Playful creativity, pleasure with all of our senses, presence in the body. And the idea that, are these plants actually capable of being our guides through these initiations? Again, playing with words, creating whales. So wisdom, that the wisdom of these sacred plants are actually expanding our definition of sexuality. That this is not only the erotic energy that we hold in our bodies, our erotic teachers in the form of plants, of the elements, of these other beings and dimensions that do want to show us and teach us. And that there is the wisdom of discerning which are the shadow energies and which are the ones that want to benefit our soul's journey. We're really lacking in this teaching, skill building right now. And then the heart being, at least for ayahuasca, is the portal into integrated sexuality. This is where the intelligence really has been missing for so long in our Western culture. We've been up here so much in our minds. And then the awakening to our erotic intelligence. What is this intelligence, and how can we actually integrate this on a daily way in our lives? And liberation. The idea for me is initiation to liberation. That when we are healing the wounds of our sexual trauma in the past, and also celebrating these transitions in our sexuality, that we will liberate our bodies, and as well the earth. And that it's never too late to do this. Time is an illusion. We can go back, heal, weave patterns together again in a good way, and change our lives now. And then the erotic embodiment, that our bodies are the temples of the universe. So much focus is on ceremonies, expanding our consciousness, going out, learning something. I don't even know what we're supposed to learn. For me, it's been just coming back into my body. And this is just the big vision. I'll talk more about this later, I think. Entheogens. And if you have any questions, please reach out, and I will pass out a list that you can add your name. And if you're interested in being on a list where I send out various information, you'll see the column of C groups, and these are the groups that I offer, really acknowledging the importance of the integration piece, because so much focuses on ceremonies. So this is activating our embodied intelligence around what we experience maybe in ceremonies or diets. And then the other list is the IRIS list, initiation, rites, and sexuality. And if you're interested, I'm organizing a series of seminar talks. I'm going to be interviewing people, and they're free. And if you want to get on the list and hear these talks, please just make a check mark beside that. Is that good timing?
Perfect timing. So we have some moments for anyone who'd like to ask Yalila some questions. I'll make sure she sees you. Anybody? Or comments?
So when you went down to Peru for 3 months, can you hear me?
I don't know if you'll be able to hear.
Oh, okay. When you went down to Peru for 3 months, how did you know where to go and who would be trusted for this incredible journey?
Yeah, good question. I don't recommend doing what I did, which was I literally just followed the wind and landed, you know, in a place that luckily was a good circle. I did no research. I didn't really know much about ayahuasca. So I recommend looking at the various sites, talking to people, and getting recommendations, because I just spoke with someone earlier today actually, where it's like 80% of leaders, I'm guessing 80%, but that there have been such huge issues with unethical behavior in circles that they're not safe.
So you got lucky.
I got lucky.
Anyone else?
I have a question. It seemed like you were having a category sexual initiation, and I'm wondering if you, is that because that's the work you were doing and focusing on, so it would acknowledge other types of initiation as well?
Exactly.
Okay, that was what I get.
Exactly.
So similar things would happen in the regular initiation then, that correlated to the sexual initiation with
Yep.
the bodies? Okay.
Yep. And I welcome people to explore the other rounds of initiation. I just happen to focus on sexuality.
What you might want to consider doing is sharing one last word with them before you take your seat. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, around the Entheogens goal then. So in the other talks that I've given, the importance of making alliances, and there are various community groups, even here at Erie at CIS, but it's really important to connect in with these kind of groups and offer support in whatever way you can. And in terms of education, really expanding our sense of what education is, and CIS is brilliant in this, and you know, offering different types of ways of communing with each other and with other allies. And then of course I added in initiations. I would love for this to be part of whatever school is formed. And the idea of merging different modalities, this is something that's different. Traditionally, you know, it's very simple. You have your ayahuasca bottle and your burrito water and tobacco, and you sit in ceremony, and that's that. And what's interesting is the transmutation of these practices in North America, and that there are so many different kinds of circles integrating in different ways of healing. So singing, having music sound healing integrated in, and then having limpias done in different ways, and having pre and post support with acupuncture and herbs, and having Reiki during ceremony. I mean, all these things are a bit strange for other healers in more traditional vegetalista South American modalities. But this is the exciting part for all of us, is that we get to create something together. What is it that's working for us? And with the Western mind, that there is more need for integration and preparation as well. And it's just who we are. You know, we need a little more TLC, I believe. You know, create a little bit more gently. So this is the brilliance of what's happening today, I see, in North America.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have no more questions, but I can ask you.
We have a moment. Why don't you informally?
Sure, great. I'm just wondering about, have you worked with couples in ceremony, and what are your views on people connecting in that way?
You mean sexually? Or connecting in what way?
Sexually, or just with touch, or
Yes.
in any capacity,
Yes, that's a great question.
versus just saying.
Yeah, I love the internal process, and I've had more and more people, especially couples, wanting the private exploration, and I am open to it. I believe that, again, the preparation is really important in setting a clear guide for the journey, and so sort of like, what is the purpose of this? Like, if we're experimenting, I'm all for experimenting, but there be like a very clear purpose, and that everyone feels safe and secure. The container is there. So yes, I say yes to it. Yeah.
I have another question. When you were in Canada working with the women who were traumatized, you said you were stumped. Now that you have all this experience, maybe this is not an easy question, but what would you do to help? Would you still be stumped, or given the legality of the situation?
Yes, good question. So I continue to connect with the hospital up in BC because I love being there for periods of time. And I talk to the nurses and the doctors about it, and I bring in a drum and a rattle and Florida water, and I'm just experimenting as well, you know, to see how the moms and the babies, like, I'll whisper certain prayers into the baby. You know, I'm a bit odd that way, but people they know me, and so they're a little more accommodating. And what I really think is essential is actually having more rituals for the professionals. These so-called professionals, I kept saying this, like, that I don't see much of a difference. It's just that we're, you know, focusing in two different roles in this big play that we're in. And I really think that my focus will be more on the healthcare professionals and holding groups for them. So
We'll have more time for later for questions for Yalila and all of the panel discussants. So I'd like to ask you to help me welcome our next presenter. Amata Albero is here with us as our second presenter. She has a BA in Cultural Anthropology and an MA in East-West Psychology. Amata has been interested in indigenous ways of healing for several years. In the late years here, she's developed a deeper sense in entheogenic shamanic practices, encountering peyote on the way to personal healing. Her current research as a doctoral student in the East-West Psychology program bridges her interest in intergenerational trauma and her spiritual path on the way of peyote. Please help me welcome Amata.
Amata. Thank you. Thank you, Janice, and thank you, all of you, for being here tonight and supporting all of us who are working with these plants and having the courage to come and speak about it despite the controversial field that is usually involved in this. So for me, tonight is the first time ever coming behind this microphone and sharing with an audience my experience as a researcher and my experience as a person who walk behind the medicine. I recently felt the call to come out of the corner and find that courage and that faith within me to share what I find really meaningful in my life right now. So first of all, I want to share the title of this presentation, which is also the title of a pilot study I conducted last semester for a class in qualitative research. This is my second year as a doctoral student, and as I was moving forward my journey to graduate school, I was wondering how I could translate my personal prayer into research, because I wanted to make this journey to my dissertation meaningful and connected to my life walk. So I wanted to, my prayer is actually that my walk and my spiritual practice and in my research can be the same thing. So this title came about after this pilot study to test the field of my topic dissertation, which bridges these two vectors of my life, an interest in intergenerational trauma and ancestral healing, and a spiritual path on the peyote way. Well, it's a tricky task because, you know, a prayer goes way beyond our analytical capacity to understand the mystery involved in the way we heal at time. Anyhow, it came to me at some point in my life that as I was running away from my family in southern Italy and I was becoming a mother, I realized that there were patterns in my family, looking at the history of my ancestors, that kept being passed generation through generation. So as I moved to this country, for the first time in my life I opened up to prayer, and I really called in the ancestor to help me and to guide me to a place where I could find healing, not only for myself, but also for all the people that came before me and that allowed me to be in this place and in this form and in this time of my life. And that prayer led me to the teepee. The teepee is the place where the ceremony, the peyote ceremonies are usually held. Now, how many of you are familiar with the acronym NAC? All right, so NAC stands for Native American Church. And Native American Church is the legal name of the peyote religion. The peyote religion was in fact legally incorporated as an institutionalized religion in 1918. And this means that from a legal standpoint, the federal law allows Native American people to use peyote in a bona fide religious context. So Native American people are protected by the law in their right to consume peyote as a sacramental medicine. This doesn't apply for everybody though. And I realized as I was proceeding into this project that the other side of my interest was actually advocating for the benefits of this medicine, not only for the Native American people, but for all the people without discrimination of color or race. Because in my experience, I found out that intergenerational trauma is something that doesn't only apply to indigenous people or minorities that have been persecuted, dislocated by their land, that have suffered genocide. Intergenerational trauma, actually, it's an heritage that it's on everybody's skin, regardless colors and race. And it weighs on the offspring of the perpetrators, just like it weighs on the offspring of the victims. So I arrived to the teepee and to my very first peyote ceremony holding a prayer for my life, which is healing my blood, my legacy, my ancestral legacy from the patterns of substance addiction, violence, anger, loss, abandonment that kept to appear like the recurrent patterns that I could identify. And so as this prayer
moved me forward. I kept going to ceremonies and becoming familiar with the native ways and becoming familiar with the people that gather around this medicine. I realized that this prayer wasn't only mine, that a lot of the people that I was meeting and connecting with at the teepee were actually holding the same prayer for themselves and the same prayer for their ancestors. And so it occurred to me that there was this wonderful connection between ancestral healing and the peyote ceremony. And I started to wonder, what was that connection? How peyote, the consumption of peyote, intergenerational trauma, and ancestral healing were related. What were the benefits of consuming peyote in this way in relation to the healing of intergenerational trauma? And so this became, from a spiritual call, this started to become more of a inquiring question. My researcher mind, my seeker mind wanted to know more. And in this qualitative research class, I had the opportunity to develop this pilot study to verify if there was actually a chance to translate this prayer into my dissertation. So I went to New Mexico, and I met an elder from Cuba, and I got the chance to have an interview with him. I decided to do this interview with an elder from New Mexico because I wanted to keep it in a very objective way, a professional and detached approach to research. So I didn't want to have, also guided by my mentors, I didn't want to have a personal involvement with the people that I was gonna conduct this pilot study. So I was very happy that I could have someone that wasn't acquainted to me and that I didn't know much about. But it turned out that this interview was way beyond a simple detached, objective conversation with a person to gather some information. In fact, it became a real transmission of knowledge from an elder to a young person seeking truth and knowledge about spirit, healing, and life. And it became a very profound experience that moved me in many ways. The timing of this interview was incredible because just a week before, I had peyote ceremonies for my life. So now, briefly, for those of you who are not familiar with the way of peyote, every peyote ceremony, every peyote meeting is held by a prayer of a sponsor. There's a person that needs help, healing for any kind of illness, physical, mental, or spiritual. Or there's also the chance of praying for giving thanks or other more joyful reasons. But usually people ask of a ceremony to have some sort of help. And so I did myself a year prior, asked for a ceremony for my life, to really come into that kind of initiation actually that Yalila was talking about. I prepared for the ceremony for about a year. I attended this prayer every day, until the moment of the ceremony came. And so this was already a profound initiation. And a week after, I got the chance to go to New Mexico. So I was really like moved forward by the prayer. So I sat in ceremony with this elder, and then the day after, I spent a day at his house. I prepared lunch for him and his family. And then we shared some words about the reasons why I'm doing this research. And at that point, we retired in a room, and I had the chance to ask him a few questions about the peyote meetings, about who this medicine is for. We shared talks about racism and discrimination. And then finally, I got to ask him, what do you think is the relationship between intergenerational trauma and the sacramental consumption of peyote? How would you explain intergenerational trauma in your own words? And so I didn't got a straight answer. I got also, all I got were a bunch of incredible, intimate, personal life stories. I was amazed because I didn't expect that this person was going to open up to me in the way he did, sharing very, very crucial, intimate details of his life, from his childhood to growing up into having a very troubled life as a young man, sharing with me things that you usually wouldn't share with your own children. So I was touched. The answer wasn't straight. What is intergenerational trauma? In his own words. What it came out is that intergenerational trauma was expressed in his ways as a way, as an impression. The way he said, this is what he said. He said, these impressions took over my life. And he was talking about the impressions that he had received from his family dysfunctional patterns. Men who were womanizer, abuser, family that got broke up by betrayal, violence of different kind, anger and suffering, suicide in his family, like his brother committed suicide. So he shared all these very dramatic stories, ultimately to say intergenerational trauma is like an impression that is marked upon your skin. And this impression took over his life. But as he met this medicine, peyote, he was able to see all these dysfunctions in his family, all these generational traumas as he described them. And he was able to understand how these moment of disruption and dramatic happenings in his family were actually connected to a very crucial thing in the history of his people, the loss of tradition. The loss of tradition and the loss of the connection with the elders and the ancestral prayer, the ancestral ways. So he said, systematically, the Christian religion was forced down their throats. They took everything away. They killed a lot of the leaders, a lot of the spirituality, a lot of the way of life. And you know, after 2 or 3 generations, a lot of that is lost and people have nothing to rely on. And he kept going on. Not having a tradition, a traditional background, a spiritual background, and some of the ceremonial ways that they give you a positive identity for yourself and your people and your family, I feel that's a big one. So it came out that the intergenerational trauma is strictly connected to this interruption of our connection with the ancestral ways, with the people that came before us and that had developed some kind of knowledge to cope with life and to take care of life. Another thing that emerged in the interview is that what peyote did for this man, and I agree because he did the same, this medicine did the same thing for me, is that through this contemplative healing practice of sitting in front of the fire with the medicine for a long night ceremony, there is an opening of the heart. And there is a way we are reminded that it's not all our fault, that all our dysfunctional attitudes, all our mistakes are not all our fault. And we find a way to be compassionate toward ourselves and toward our people, toward the ones who hurt our people, and toward the wound that was ultimately impressed and marked upon everybody by history. And he said this is a very important moment of the interview, because in this very point he became very emotional, and I saw this man, this very tough man, a sun dancer, who had a very, very thick skin. That's how he looked at me, a man with a very thick skin. This man cried in this very moment he was talking this way. He said, some way, the hardest thing is to keep love for humanity. And people that need help are very hard sometimes, you know. And so the prayer is about patience. Patience to have the patience and the compassion to understand that forgiveness, you know, it's part of the deal of healing. And he said, a lot of the way I learned was through the elders talking, elders giving you advice. Sometimes I meet people and I don't know if I'll ever meet them again, and I really just have this compassionate urgency to tell them everything I can to help them, because I might not see them again. And in that moment, he really cried from the heart, because he was really pointing out that the lack of the elders, the lack of that connection with someone that could guide you through very difficult moments in life was what got him lost in first place. And is what actually got him back to the call of becoming an elder and a leader and a helper himself. So in a way, Peyote opened his heart to compassion and to love for humanity despite all the many wounds that this man had carried on his skin, and to spend his life in service to help others. So then it turns, what he said about the Peyote meetings, it's this. These meetings, these ceremonial ways, are the ones that still carry those ancestral prayers. In the ceremonial, in the work we do with the plants, because these work come from, in a way, even in the most syncretic and contemporary version of it, this work is still informed by the oral tradition, and so it's still carrying those ancestral prayers that allow us to connect with the past. So he said, I feel that a lot of the generational trauma is done through the prayer. This is using his own words. Is done through rewriting what happened to your family and your people. So these prayers, this contemplation that happens with the medicine, this contemplation that happens in front of the fire, as it opens you to compassion and forgiveness and to a higher picture, and it helps you to look into the spiritual mirror. It also helps you to rewrite what happened to your family. So, to make the story short, and to come to a few reflections that are gonna be, this is very like a larva stage of this research. It's a lot of work to do ahead, but this pilot study really gave me a sense of what could be improved and how actually this interview could be brought to different elders across the country from different tribes to see how, you know, these informations can apply, you know, in a more general and broad way. But to make the story short on this pilot study and this experience, talking about intergenerational trauma as manifested in our life experience as ancestral grief, a way to address ancestral grief is first of all through the ancestral prayer. So the traditional knowledge, the patience, the compassion, and the forgiveness, that this connection with our ancestors, with the people that came before us and gave us life, can guide us through the mud. Another aspect is therapeutic emplotment. Here I'm going to throw into the cauldron a very academic word that I took from this very precious work, A Different Medicine, Post-Colonial Healing in the Native American Church. For those of you who are interested in deepening this topic, this is the most informative work I've read so far, and the most contemporary in explaining the Native American Church from an interdisciplinary approach that bridges medical anthropology and clinical psychiatry. So the guy, Joseph Calabrese, who is head of the medical anthropology section at the University College of London, explained therapeutic emplotment as a process of meaning-making into a narrative of healing. So therapeutic emplotment is basically what my elder said in his words, rewriting what happened to your family and to your people. Therapeutic emplotment is our capacity to make a meaning out of a story which ultimately facilitates our healing. So that's another second point of how to address ancestral grief. Third point, grieving in community, revealing one's personal story truthfully. One of the very first things my elder said was, truth is a must. With this plant teacher, peyote, truth is a must. You cannot fool yourself at all. Once you're there, you're gonna see it. And even if you don't like it, you're gonna see it. So once you disclose yourself in a vulnerability, in your own vulnerability, in your own mistakes, in your own flaws, in front of the medicine, and in front of the entire community that is there to support a prayer, that possibility to grieve together and to be honest, it's another element that facilitates the healing process, not only for the person that is going through this, but for the entire community. And when they say that that healing moment that it's happening there for that person actually goes 7 generations behind and 7 generations ahead. So it's not only taking care of the people before you who are still suffering from the other side of the veil, but it will take care also of the children that are coming from you, because these ways help with restoring. They help. They are restorative ways to create family structures, relational structures that are healthy and functional. And this is something about Native American church that needs to be said at large, generalizing and considering that there are always exceptions and flaws everywhere in every kind of group. But one thing that NAC does, at least it did for me in my life, offers are restorative examples of family relationships and child rearing. There is an approach to the elder, there is an approach to the children. Children are involved in the ceremonies. Children are also allowed to consume the medicine if they feel called to. So that gives the possibility to understand family and growing together in a way that I think we've lost in our society, especially for this connection we have with the elders and the connection that we have with the children. So basically we learn to take care of life from a different perspective. That's the last point, taking care of life. This is what this medicine has been teaching me, and this is what I'm grateful for ultimately to close this conversation, this dialogue with you and with the medicine, is that this medicine has been teaching me to be a mother. And I first had the sense that I wasn't only myself when I was pregnant with my son. And for the first time in my life, touching my belly with him growing into it, I realized that my life and his life were connected. And that was the very first moment, a life-changing moment, that our life were connected to all these people that came before us. And if all those people didn't meet, if all those people didn't cross path and didn't cross blood, we wouldn't be there that moment. So the prayer to my ancestors led me to the teepee, fire, and the peyote. And the peyote has been helping me healing my blood for the future of my offspring and the well-being of my offspring. And all this eventually and hopefully with the help of the spiritual allies and the ancestors will be translated into a research someday. Thank you.
Take a few questions. Sure. Anyone? Up here?
Have you thought about, or is there any interest in bringing some of the learning back to Italy?
Yes, actually this has been not a thought as much as a vision I had in multiple ceremonies. And in a way, I actually already did in part, because last summer, I'm going to confess this publicly, maybe I'll be arrested afterward, but last summer I went back to Italy, and because I was preparing for my ceremony, and I decided to travel to my homeland with the medicine. So I actually did the ritual there alone with the land. Actually, what I did so far was putting the medicine on the ground and offering the medicine to the soil and saying, we're going to keep talking about this. So it is a vision, and I believe and I have faith in this vision that at the right time this will happen. However, as I was in Italy, I was trying to bring my father and my sister to a peyote ceremony in Czech Republic, because there are ceremonies that are happening over there in Europe, in different places, Czech, Switzerland, Italy as well. And I really try hard and hard and hard, and I really wanted them to have this experience because I really thought that they would benefit from it. And it didn't happen. 2 days before leaving, it all blew up, and my spirit dad in this community told me, you gotta understand that if you want to be of service, you have to stop being a rescuer. This is something that someone needs to go, someone arrives at the teepee, at the peyote ceremony, or to the medicine, to these medicine in general, from their spiritual call. And nobody can tell to someone else, oh, you should really do that. This would really help you. In fact, I want to make a disclaimer. Everything that I shared here tonight applies to my life and to the life of the people I've met, but it's by any means a way to say, go to a peyote ceremony and find the same healing for yourself. Unless you find it, you know, in your heart to be a call, unless Spirit somehow guides you there one day. And this is another thing that this elder shared with me, is that this is a spiritual call. The fire calls you. You might think it's you thinking that you want to go to a peyote ceremony, but it's actually the fire that has called you there. And once you find your place in there, that place was meant to be for you from the beginning of times. So your healing was always meant to be.
Another question? Comment?
Since we're talking about different plant medicines today, and you're specifically addressing peyote, but I'm wondering if you've had experiences with other plant medicines, and I'm wondering how peyote maybe, in your opinion, aligns better for this type of work, or
Yeah.
just curious about it.
Yeah, so before meeting peyote, I had met grandmother ayahuasca. And it was one-time experience, and I respect the medicine and I love it, but it set me on a journey that was very intense for me. It opened up a well of grief that actually peyote helped me to address in a more solar way. I found for myself that the solar principle in peyote, you know, peyote is this plant that grows in the desert, okay? And I find a metaphor in that. It grows in the desert, is exposed, you know, to light, even if it doesn't grow directly in the sun. And another thing is that peyote grows, is a cactus, so it grows in families. It's beautiful. It grows in clusters of families, so you have the big chief and all these other children around. And if you look at it, you know, peyote has to do with relations because it knows about family since the way it grows. It knows about scarcity. It knows about very harsh life condition. And it learned a way to adapt to these hard conditions. So in that way, I found that the story of peyote's life and evolution was resonating a lot to my needs in the way I needed to find a medicine to adapt to life scarcities and harshness. And so in the bitterness of its medicine, I found a lot of sweetness. So, but I had experience with ayahuasca once. I experienced the little mushroom once, ceremonially. I never actually had any recreational experience with plant medicines before this time of my life. So I feel respect and gratitude for all of them, but this is my family. Yeah, I belong to the cactus family. Spineless, sometimes with spine.
Is the peyote family of San Pedro very similar?
They're cousins, I think. You know, they're very similar in the sense that they share the compound. Is that the right term in English? That it's the mescaline. But I never actually had any experience with San Pedro, and so I really don't know that would be translated into a spiritual practice.
And I noticed that you called peyote him, like male. Is he also masculine like San Pedro?
Well, there's a few ideas. I actually, originally, I had an understanding of the medicine as him. I understand it as grandfather. But then, one night, during a ceremony, I actually experienced also the counterpart. So, grandmother. So when I talk to the plant, and I am lucky because I can sit in front of the living plants every day almost. I call it grandpa and grandma at the same time. But to make it short here, I use the him, just because grandfather make me feel more secure here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Our third presenter. Her name is JeanAnn Britt, and JeanAnn is an assistant professor of nursing at the California State University Stanislaus in Turlock, and she's a doctoral student here in the East-West Psychology program. She is an energy healer, an indigenous ceremonial singer. JeanAnn has worked extensively in her short life with the Ogallala Lakota Sioux, Utes, Pueblo, Amata, and Shipibo tribes for the past 20 years. JeanAnn loves to sing in medicine ceremonies, and JeanAnn is recording an album of sacred songs. Please welcome with me JeanAnn Britt.
To walk around, so I don't know how I'm going to do with being tethered down, but I'll try to do the best I can. Oh, turn my timer on. Okay.
It's best if we stay within this range where it's supposed to be.
Okay. Sweet. Okay, I want to thank Dr. Janice Phelps for this opportunity to come and talk with you guys. I'm sitting here listening to Yalila, listening to Amata, and the similarity of the paths is very, gives me chicken skin, like we say in Hawaii. I used to work at an OBGYN clinic in Palatine, Illinois, and I did energy healing and body psychotherapy and brought people to peyote ceremonies in Chicago. So it's interesting the different healing methods that can be used. So I'm a Western medical person. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse since 1978, and you'll see my background in a second. But the title of my talk is The Song is Love. Because for me, I've been working for many, many years. The other day I tried to count up how many ceremonies I've been in. It's in the hundreds of peyote ceremonies and ayahuasca ceremonies, washumo ceremonies. So I'm a very experienced ceremonial person, and I've led several ayahuasca ceremonies myself, one in East Hampton, New York, a couple in Hawaii. So my teacher encourages me now to lead ceremonies, but anyway, there's resistance on my part, legal and all kinds of stuff. And then to hear Yalila mention she'd like to bring the ceremonies to healthcare professionals, that's what I've been dreaming about. That's my latest dream. And ayahuasca has also guided me, told me to go to Hawaii Pacific University, told me to come here, told me to go to Turlock. I was like, no, I want to go back to Hawaii. So I've had a very rich experience. And you'll see this is some of my tapestries from your relatives in the South. So all my teachers say, I'm just going to tell you some stories about your other relatives, your cousins from down south and up north. So it was beautiful to drive up from the Central Valley and come up to the Bay Area again to see the fog on Mount Tam. But this picture here, if you go down and work with the Shipibo, and if you do a lot of ayahuasca, this is what I see on my mind screen when I'm working with the medicine. And the grandmothers, I'll show you a picture of Anastasia in a minute, one of my aunties, she will take her finger and trace and sing the high-pitched, the high-pitched feminine ayahuasca song. So here we go, let's see if I can make this work. So this all came about because when I was a baby, my mom got really sick and she couldn't take care of me, so my grandmother did. So the first song I remember is laying on my grandma. She's a big lady like me. I'm Dutch and German. I'm a Cancer and I'm a Ravati if you're an Ayurvedic astrology person. But on my grandmother's stomach as she was holding me, she would sing the song. It's a Christian song. It goes like this. Love lifted me, love lifted me, when nothing else could help, love lifted me. And she would sing that because she was a widow and her husband had died when my father was 2. So my grandmother was sad and she would hold me and sing to me. And so when I first met ayahuasca, I was like, oh, my grandma's back. Because my first sensation was sitting with the ayahuasca while she held me, and I could cry, so it was really, really cool. Here's my educational background. I'm a total academic. I started out in CIIS at the Transformative Studies because I was like, I'm not leaving Hawaii. I was living in Hawaii, and I said, I'm not moving. I'll do the online. And then I started seeing Susana Bustos teaching. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta go to San Francisco. I hate cities. I grew up on a farm. So now I'm finishing my East-West Psychology degree, and my beginning degrees were Bachelor of Science and Masters in Nursing. So my specialty is intensive care unit nursing. Then after I got divorced in 1990, I was a trophy wife of an orthopedic surgeon. Crazy! Anyway, after my standard returned, it all went away. I wasn't at Neiman Marcus anymore buying my Louis Vuitton bag. I found myself like, what happened? What happened? I was like going to New York, had $1 million, now I have, wow, I'm divorced. So, and because the creator of The Great Mystery, the Wonka Tonka, was like, JeanAnn, you gotta get out of Neiman Marcus with those Louis Vuitton bags. That's not where you came. I was like, I like the Louis Vuitton bag. Anyway, so I had a huge change of life, and I started to study all these things I thought were crazy. Chiropractic. I actually was gonna go to chiropractic school. Then I went and had an energy healing from a Barbara Bennett healer, and I was like, oh my gosh, what was that? Anyway, so a bunch of crazy stuff happened to me. I went to Barbara Brennan's healing school and taught for her in New York and Miami for 4 years, and had a big practice in Chicago, full practice of students, and did supervision. And then I also, at the same time as with Barbara, I did a body psychotherapy training. So I'm a body psychotherapist. You come and see me, we're gonna sing, we're gonna hit, we're gonna breathe, and do all kinds of stuff. And at the very same time, from Yalila, I started working with the Lafayette Morehouse. And if you don't know them, they're out in Lafayette here. They teach about extended female orgasm. So I've lived in their commune on the North Shore of Oahu. And I've done a bunch of crazy stuff, so my family just thinks I'm crazy, because they're all from a sect of Mormonism. About that sect of Mormonism. All right, so you can see, my mentor from Barbara Brennan's called me there and he said, JeanAnn, you're a long way from Missouri. I said, I know, I'm a long way. So I'm a Heyoka Thunder Dreamer. The Heyoka Thunder Dreamers are a group at the Sundance in Rosebud, South Dakota, and we are the crazy people. We're the backwards people. We're the bisexual people. We're the people who do all the outrageous things to make everybody know that it's okay, however you are. So that's kind of what I do. So this pilot study, back to the pilot study, this was done 2 years ago in Dr. Phelps' class, and the purpose of my study, I'm getting all excited here, and calm down, is to study, as I narrow my focus down, down, down from all my hundreds of experiences, I wanted to look at the combination of singing and plant medicines, and then further singing, and then the experience of one shaman. So this is my research question. What's the experience of singing at a medicine ceremony? And why do I care about that? Because in my visions, I've seen that there's going to be groups of people, and we need to train people here to lead ceremonies. People need to be in hundreds of ceremonies. They need to learn how to sing. Because if you've ever been to a ceremony with a shaman that can't sing, has anybody been to one of those? OMG! It's a long night. Yeah, so when I go around in Peru and in Chile and Mexico and in the United States, I'm looking for the shamans who can sing, because they have the juju. They have it in their soul, they have it in their belly. So I want to know what's going on. So I picked, just like Yalila, I felt like I had to be involved, because this is close to my heart. So I employed Clark Moustakis' heuristic method. And these are the 4 phases of Moustakis' method. Initial engagement, immersion and indwelling, incubation and illumination. So these are the ceremonies that I know the songs for. So I was really blessed. The great mystery, the Wakatanka, the creator, didn't let me just wander around. He led me, or she led me, to a specific path where first I learned purification. First I learned the sweat lodge. I learned how to work with the fire. I learned how to work with the rocks. I learned how to work with the water. And I'm one of these people who really cautious. Oh, I can do it. I can do it. So the first sweat lodge I poured, I was ejected. And I found myself sitting outside the lodge. I'm like, what happened? And my teacher's like, you're not ready. Anyway, tons of stories. Then the Shanupa, the sacred pipe. Now I'm working in the Three Rivers Lodge in Manteca. So come over to Manteca and sweat with us. They have a beautiful lodge. We need women, because this is an alcohol recovery program for men. And so when I go to the lodge, there's like 20 men and 3 women, which is great. And I'm learning all the Miwok songs, all the roundhouse songs. It's very fun. And then as I came on the path, as the path took me, I worked with peyote first quite extensively, which is super good for clearing and healing. Because my first teacher said I was like a tornado. He said, oh my gosh, your energy's so crazy. And then I learned ayahuasca, and then I also really love the San Pedro. But I don't like to call it San Pedro, because if you go to South America, you'll find that, anyway, that's a whole other story. So I first in 1991 started working with the Lakota Sioux, and this is Jorge Renevard. He actually does peyote ceremonies in the Czech Republic. Anyway, I've got to go back here. Sorry. Anyway, he was my first teacher, and he worked extensively with me because I showed up. I'm this blonde, crazy woman, and on the way to meet him, I found a dead turtle on the road. So I showed up, I'm like, hey, Jorge, here's this dead turtle. He's like, oh my gosh, these crazy white women. I'm Wasichu. I'm a white woman. I'm not indigenous, so I don't want to pull any wool over your eyes. But eventually, I went to my humble nature, which is a vision quest. I did 4 days, no food or water. So I encourage all of you, if you're going to work with the medicine, you need to be able to sit with yourself. And so I would encourage you to do a vision quest and learn how to go 4 days with no food or water. It's really, you can do it and it's very easy. Anyway, it's a whole other story. And then finally, on my humble nature, my vision quest, I was told I'd go to the Sundance. So this is Frank Foolsgrove. He's the reason I got to Sundance. He had a vision people of all color should be able to dance. This is my friend Arvel Looking Horse. He runs this Sundance up in Greengrass, but I actually danced in Pine Ridge in South Dakota, and you have to dance for 4 years. You don't eat or drink. You go to the sweat lodge every morning and evening, and it's a prayer dance. And it's very humbling to dance with the Native people, and they're still very wounded. They still talk all the time. They're like, hey, did you know this has just been legal since Jimmy Carter? I'm like, yeah. Anyway, flesh offerings and piercings. So here's a picture. And one of the major things that happens at the Sundance is offering and piercing and tying yourself to the tree. So my favorite song that I sing as a healer in ceremonies, because when I work in a ceremony, I go around and I heal people. I do energy healing, I sing to them, I hold them, and I sing the piercing song. And so it goes, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. So as we're dancing in the arbor, people are being pierced. That song is sung over and over. And now it's so cool because you can see the songs on the internet. But in the old days, the only way you could learn the song was to go. So they said you got to come and learn the song at the ceremony. And in 1991, too, you can see, is astrologically, oh my gosh, if you look at my transits, it's a crazy time of Uranus and everything. So my first peyote ceremony was with the roadman William Baker in Illinois. The year after that, I started to, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did all this stuff. I started to work with beautiful Painted Arrow, and his English name is Joseph Rael, and I started to work in the sound chambers in the kivas. And Joseph is a mystic and an artist, and he's retired and very reclusive now. But in 1983, he had a vision that we should have sound chambers all over the earth and we should tone into the earth. So we do. And at the solstice and the equinox, we tone for 24 hours straight. And the toning gets passed from kiva to kiva all around the world. We have them in Australia. The one that I'm a direction holder in is up in Gold Hill, Colorado. So if you ever go to Boulder, go up to Gold Hill, go to the Kiwa Kiva, ask anybody in town. And I've lived there twice. I love that work. So really good work. And this is Joseph's original sound chamber in Kiva that was in a trailer park in Albuquerque. And I asked him to bless my shanupa, my pipe, because the Lakota people are kind of feisty. They kind of gave me trouble. They're like, you're a white woman. What's that pipe you have? Don't call it a pipe, call it shanupa. Don't say a ho, say a he. I was like, oh. Anyway, so when I met Joseph, Joseph like took me in. So I needed to break from the Lakota. They're very, very hard people. And then in 1997, the ayahuasca came and found me. I was in Chicago. I was leading sweat lodges, healing women, working for Barbara Brennan, doing a lot of stuff. And I was coordinating a healing center, an alternative healing center for Highland Park Hospital. And I interviewed a doctor who wanted to be our doctor. And I said, oh yeah, I do these sweat lodges. He's like, oh really? I work with the K-Road down in the Andes. I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, he introduced me to not to ayahuasca or anything, but he introduced me to Freddie. So at this point I started to work with Freddie, and the pilot study is from Freddie. Freddie's my teacher that I've been working with for a long time. So even though I've talked to him a lot, I wanted to do the pilot study with him. I kind of snuck up by Janice. I think it would have been an objective person better, but here's the ayahuasca and the chacruna, cooking it. And then I've been down to Peru too. So like Yalila, the best, and she said if she couldn't wait to get back, I told her I wanted to stay there. I spent 2 months there dieting and traveling up around down the Amazon. I didn't want to leave, so I'm really looking forward to retiring and going back and living down there. So just to show you, here's the villages, very, very poor conditions. Here's a tourist Maloka, a lot of malaria. And then this is the medicine man that I work with, Mateo Arevalo. And talk about political juju. A couple years ago, I was like, Mateo, I'm coming down. They're like, don't go talk to Mateo. We're going to kill him. He's on the bad list. So, I mean, you never know. They may be on the bad list because they didn't feed people or whatever. And then the guy in the middle is Alan Brown. He lives up in Minneapolis, and he works a lot with the medicines, too. He's a professional photographer. He took some of these pictures. So when I stayed down there, one of the things I noticed was they were watching black and white films from the 1950s because they've forgotten their songs. They've forgotten their dances. And here's a picture of the young kids dancing. They can't remember their traditional dances. And the girls, they all want lipstick, they want computers, and they want to come to the United States and go to college. So they don't really want to do this ayahuasca stuff. And then here's the ceremonial Maloka, where we gather. And so as I entered into the pilot study now, Janice guided us in a meditation, and I actually returned to Wisconsin to go to a medicine ceremony. At the same time, I was taking an entheogenic shamanism course, a Jungian psychology course, and then I do therapies with myself continually. I'm always working on myself. Barbara Brennan taught me that if you're a healer, you have to work on yourself. So I was doing sound play, a lot of imagery. So here's my interview questions, and we're almost out of time, but what's your experience of singing? And these are some of my pictures from the Cairo, from ceremonies I've done with them. What qualities or dimensions of singing stand out? What examples are vivid and alive? What feelings were generated by the healing experience that you attribute to singing? What thoughts were generated? Machu Picchu from the sun gate. What bodily states or shifts in bodily presence occurred? This is Anastasia. She's one of the older Shipibo aunties. What time and space factors and other stuff? So I chose Freddie because he's the most experienced person I know. He speaks English, he was right there, and it was really easy to find. Here's my bracketing assumptions. I assume that the shaman is aware of the process. I assume he or she knows what they're doing. I assume they have knowledge. I assume it'll be useful in creating healing centers. Yeah, Yalila, we gotta do it. And it's already being done everywhere. There's healing centers everywhere going on. Every weekend, people are meeting and doing ceremonies and rituals. People are on vision quests all the time. And I also assume that I'm being led by a mystery greater than myself. I don't know what the great mystery is. And part of the desire too is that I want to sing my songs. I want people to hear me, and I want to work with my clients. So here's the themes that came out. That the medicine and the songs are a bridge between different worlds. They're a communication bridge, and the medicine and the songs bring information for the people. It brings back your ancient memory. And this is a thing that I find talking to many of the shamans. It increases your psychic ability, so you're able to diagnose and tell what people need, so you can send them to acupuncture and all that. And that's what I do with my clients in Chicago. I had a whole group, had acupuncture, had a naturopath. It's great. And if you're a healer, you also are aware of your psychic ability. Freddie says too that many times the purpose of the song is to take the people to a higher spiritual level and move the people in the direction of prayer. He says that the songs, since they've been sung over and over and over so many times, they're alive. They're infused with meaning. And when we sing them to call in the energy, we sing them to set the container, and then during the ceremony, we start to work with what's going on. And this is another really important thing. This is part of my mission, is the Condor Eagle Prophecy. So this is a peyote ceremony that we did south of Santiago, Chile. So the purpose now is to mix the medicines, to bring the peyote to South America and all the different plant medicines and bring the medicines to North America. And it's not just ayahuasca. We often say that ayahuasca's the hook. She's the seducer. She brings you to the real healing. And if you've been to the Amazon, you gotta go. The Amazon melodies are the most powerful melodies for physical and emotional healing songs. If I get breast cancer, I'm not going to slash and burn. I'll head right down to Iquitos and Pucallpa, and I'll start working with the medicines and diet and get rid of my tumor. As an energy healer, I can see auras around people, and I know what's going on, so I can actually see during the ceremony when the shaman sings into people. Or one time I was at a ceremony where like 6 Shipibo shamans came around me, and they sang into me. Oh my gosh, that's one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had, emotional healing-wise. This is interesting because if you work with the medicines a lot, people will report they heard the medicine saying their name. They heard the medicine, the song spoke to them. The song, Janice would say, yeah, I heard. When you were singing JeanAnn, you said, Janice is a good person, she's lovely, we love her. Anyway, people get these messages as we're singing the songs. And the other thing that happens is sometimes we sing in foreign languages. Freddie says sometimes he channels the spirit. He has no idea what he's singing, and then people say, oh, that was great. He's like, I don't know, I was taken over. And the medicine shows us how to share the healing through singing. I was just watching a clip from Steve Jobs when he brought out the iPod, and he said music is so important to our lives. So true. And many times, if we go into a ceremony, say sometimes we enter in and another shaman's doing the ceremony and it's all fakakta, because the shaman hasn't set the container. People are crying and throwing up and going crazy. So we come in gently and we start to sing. And we close the container down, and we call in the spirits, and we rescue the other shaman. And the other thing too, it's good to have more than one, because it's a hard job to sit there all night from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and hold the ceremony. I know because I've done it. It's really, really hard. And luckily I got prepared. This brings up the magic that Janice is creating here, pulling in all these resources from all these people. This is a magical time. These plants and everything are alive. They talk to you, and once you work with them a lot, they're with you all the time. And the other thing is the best people, if you want to go to the best singers, are the Navajo, the Dene. When you go to a Native American church ceremony with the Dene, oh my gosh, they all know how to sing. And when they all sing, the vibration is amazing. And we've also done ceremonies in the sound chamber. It's an elliptical sound chamber. That is like the most amazing, to do singing and ceremony inside a drum in the earth. And then community is so important. I say to people, if you want to work with the medicine, that's good, but work in community first, a long time before you go out on your own and work with it. Or if you work with it alone, work under the guidance of a healer or a shaman. Because back when I lived in Chicago, ayahuasca had a really bad name. People would go crazy, and then they'd come to healers like me, and they'd be crazy because all their chakras were blown out. They went out and drank ayahuasca alone. They're crying. So it's really important that you have a circle, that when you're working with the medicine, that you have guides, because you'll get lost. And then the final phase in my study from Mustakas is the creative synthesis, looking at the various awakenings and layers. So here's a summary. Singing and the plant medicines are a connection. It involves spirituality, bridging of the worlds, healing, and the value of community. So those are the guidelines that I go by. Next time for me, I did it on Skype. His baby was crying, so when I go down and interview the people, I'll do it live with them right there. I'm getting ready now to find another place where I can build a sweat lodge down in the Central Valley, so I'm working on that because I like to do women's lodges. And I'll keep doing my recording and my personal artwork. Future research, I see that we should train ceremonial leaders in singing and healing. One of my friends uses CD recorded songs. At first I was like, oh, he can't do that, that's just wrong. That's the German part of me, that's wrong, wrong, wrong. Only one way, but actually, Yalila, during that ceremony, the women were experiencing such, they were like, oh, we were all like, what's going on? Anyway, so sometimes canned music can work, so open your mind, that's what I've also learned. And I also want to record these experiences in songs for future generations because they're going away. If you've been to the Amazon, the trees are cut down, the men are all gone working in the cities. We need healing for them too, and mixing of traditions. So my last things were all related. Metakuyasan, thank you for listening. And the final thing is we always close our ceremony saying, In Lakesh, I am you, Alakin, you are me. So thank you so much, and I see myself and all of you. Thank you for being interested in these ways. This is going home on the freeway in the Amazon during the rainy season. This is a view of sunset, holding a camera down next to the surface of the water. Thank you.
Thank you, JeanAnn. So, questions, comments? Yes, we got one over here.
I actually have just I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you, JeanAnn, for sharing that song, you know, the piercing song. A few days ago, we texted one another, and I told you how much actually that song did something to me when you first sing it, and I first heard that song from you. That song really stayed with me for a long, long time. And here and there, you know, I mumble it within myself, and I really find that something happened to my heart. So when you sing it, I had a moment of joyful, oh my gosh, she's singing it again. So thank you for that. And I want to just add on this presentation that you had. In my personal experience, your presentation, it's actually enforcing something that I've experienced recently since I started to sing in ceremonies. For the first, I was terrified, just like I was terrified to speak tonight. And my relationship in the ceremony changed with, I used to get well a lot. I used to purge and puke all night long on my knees and getting my entire guts out. And since I started singing, that totally changed. I can sit and stay grounded, and I really feel that force. So really thank you for this kind of research, because it really helps to understand what is that connection, how can we be that conduit between spirit and the body through those songs. So thank you again for the piercing song, and if you sing it again before you leave that spot, I'll be grateful.
Uh-oh.
I wanted to ask a question, but I want to just take a second and tell you a real quick little story and then give a context, okay? So Michael Harner was once doing grand rounds over at Pacific Med, and he was, I happened to find out about it and went and listened to it. And after the talk that he gave, one of the residents there said to him, so you mean to say the drumming is what brings the people into the altered state of consciousness? And I remember this because it kind of took me by surprise. And he said, no, not exactly. He said, it's the space between the drumming. And now you made mention of the how would you say that the song was kind of like a connection, a bridge. And I thought of it when Harner said that it was kind of like a portal, an opening, which is kind of metaphorically a little bit different than a bridge. So I was wondering, what your thoughts on it, because for me, it can manifest as a song, but I want it manifests as a vibration. Maybe it could manifest the healing energy in that relationship, bridging or portaling through in a lot of different ways. So, can song be over literalized? So everybody's looking for like an old Beatles song, or this particular song or a song they think is the song they should. You know what I mean? How do you look at what else could manifest through that vibration with the connection to the spirit realm? How can that song also be articulated? I would see what you think about
Yeah,
that.
as you're talking, I'm thinking about sometimes during the ceremony, a certain thing will happen, and Freddie I'll be sitting next to him, he'll turn to me and he'll say, sing Amazing Grace. And when he first said that to me in the sermon, I was like, I'm not singing Christian, Amazing Grace, and a plant song. He's like, no, just sing it and see what happens. So, Amazing Grace is a song that everybody in this room knows, and it's been sung so many times that it's alive. And actually, when we sing it in the ceremony, everybody comes up, and maybe they're off on their, you're off journeying, you're releasing or purging or whatever, and when that song is sung, the whole group unites because the song has that power in it. And the other thing that can happen is certain times during singing, people will start to purge. Or Freddie tells me to actually sing into the person where I see that their block is, then stuff starts to happen. So you need to be really careful with song too, because here in the Western world here, we're bombarded with song, with sounds and electromagnetic energy. So part of what people really need is they need to go out in the nature. They need to get away from all that and listen to the sound of the birds. When you're in the Amazon, the whole cacophony of the melodies of the spiders are talking to you, and the trees, and the dragonflies, and it's a totally amazing experience. So it's just, for me, song's just one part of it, and that's what I'm looking at, but it's part of a whole big circle.
I'm from Chicago, so all I have to do to hear the sounds is go out there.
Yeah.
The park, and that's.
We had a vacant house up in Wadsworth where we had 3 shamans working, and so you never wanted to get in our refrigerator because all kinds of crazy medicines were in there. But it was great. We had a vacant house, we had a lodge, and so I did my healing work of individuals there too, my body psychotherapy practice. So yeah, these places are everywhere. So just find them and ask to find a good teacher. That's the most thing you can do. Talk to me, talk to the people here, and hook up with people who are reliable. Because you can't have a bad experience, and we don't want that for you, especially if you're just starting on the medicine path.
Thank you. So you can stand and stretch if you'd like to, but stay here with us. We're going to have 15 minutes of open dialogue with all 3 of the presenters. So please stay with us, and presenters, come on up.
those in that section. If you want to move over here so you can get into it. That would be great.
It's a great idea. And we can also see one another better. Here we go. So this is stage 2. I'm going to start us out with a couple questions for these wonderful researchers for us, and then we'll open it up to further discussion and questions from you all. But since we're close to the end of our time, I wanted to ask a question of all of you. And it's one that Yalila has posed for herself, but I think it might be good for all 3 of you. Given your research and given your deep experiences in many realms, several continents, what is your ultimate dream for your community that you are situated in, or perhaps your communities that you are situated in? What's your ultimate dream? Anyone can go first.
Ultimate dream is sensual liberation for all. And specifically, this sounds a bit odd, but to revitalize the sacred brothels. And so what that means is that this is going to require a purification, a revitalization, a realignment, lots of education, and to really tap into what's already the truth in our bodies, so to bring everyone back into the body. The body is our temple, it's the universe. Once we listen to the intelligence of our bodies, and then we can tune into the intelligence of the other senses around us. There's so much going on in every moment, but because we live in this kind of context and we're numbing ourselves just to survive, and we have a lot to do, we do need to survive, that we lose connection. And what do they say is the root of a lot of our issues right now is disconnection to our bodies, to the earth, to each other, and we can get easily sidetracked. So, in terms of these temples, these sacred brothels, sacred temples, that we are learning to love ourselves, and then how do we love each other, and how can this energy, this erotic energy, be cultivated and then channeled together in community to make the changes that we need to make to ascend to the next level in our evolution, which is going to happen. It will happen, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think since I work with different circles all over the United States and then Mexico and Peru and Chile, I'd like to start doing exchanges. And already at CSU Stan, the nursing students go to Ecuador, and they came back with stories of shamans, but I'd like to mix it up. I'd like to have people from Philadelphia come here, us to go there, go kind of back and forth so we can see what's already being created and what's already out there, and we can remodel it and do it here. And one other thing too about working with Lafayette Morehouse is that it is a sacred brothel there for men and women, and they teach you how to live in community, how to work with jealousy, how to have an open relationship, how to be loving. Most of us aren't really very loving to our partners. So when it comes down to the rub and when you're in a group, you can really learn a lot about partnership and relationship, sexuality, living in a group. Again, groups are cool.
So I'll say it this way. A few months ago, I was in a sweat lodge, and my elder said, I have my dream, and that's my same dream, is that my children can be free to pray, whatever the way they feel called from. And this is my ultimate dream about walking with the medicines, behind the medicines, sitting with them, is that there's no discrimination between people, indigenous, non-indigenous, native, non-native. That I understand the whole idea of cultural and spiritual appropriation and the wound, the historical wound that it's in the heart of many people who have had to go through genocide and all kind of aberration, you know, in the human history. But it is also true that to this day, we are learning, at this point we are learning to come together in front of the fire, in front of our connection with spirit. And so my ultimate dream is that I can stand up and state that I am a peyoteist, or I pray with ayahuasca, or with the sacred mushrooms, or with any of these tools that the Creator has put on earth for our well-being, and that no laws can tell me, no law can tell me that I am, I can actually be legally persecuted and go to jail for my spiritual way, and for my faith, and for the way I want to be with Creator.
Thank you so much. Powerful. I move to silence here. Perhaps another one along these lines would be helpful. And this comes from JeanAnn, and I send it to all of you here. Why is this type of research that you've been doing important for your own personal work, your own personal path? And any of you can start out.
Well, growing up in Western medicine, being married to an orthopedic surgeon, and actually seeing on what's going on right now in intensive care units, we don't need to go to Guantanamo Bay. You can go to the ICU. So for me to work in healthcare, there's huge changes that need to happen because it's horrible. And so I feel this is part of my personal path, to introduce nurses and to tell my nursing students, this is not the only way, it's one way. And as the Affordable Care Act comes on board, and as we get health care for everyone, these things are going to be necessary too, for healing. They're powerful. And I used to be really angry that it wasn't legal here, but as I've worked with the medicines, I think it's good as protection. And a time will come when it will be legal here, but it hasn't, people aren't ready for it yet. People are blowing themselves out and all that stuff. So I really feel like to walk my talk, to sit in the lodge, to go to the Sundance, to go to Peru, to study with all these people is really what I should be doing. I shouldn't be doing research on statins and the latest huge opioid drug that just came out that's going to result in horrible traumas and stuff like that. I shouldn't be in the ICU intubating people. I should be out helping women heal, helping the sexuality get done. And it's interesting to hear both of you. It echoes my story, so it's great to be here. Wow. All right.
Thank you. So this is a great question, and I feel free to say this because I'm finished. And I had a lot of resistance to academia and structure, and I'm feeling lots of rebellion energy right now within myself, and I just want to break structure and find my own way. And just based on my cosmology, that it's been a really important journey to learn how to integrate the masculine structure with the feminine flow, and that the research, the heuristic research is beautiful for that. Thank goodness there are lots of different methodologies, and so I found a way to really go deep within myself and use my own experience as the prime, the base, the foundation of a learning that I didn't even know I was supposed to be learning. So for me, it was the flow of trust, having faith, connecting with the signs and synchronicities. That's really how I live my life right now. Some of it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's really taking everything about me and seeing that is beautiful and whole, and learning how to integrate that in. So every part of my journey, you know, even I resisted the hospital work, and I'm seeing how to tie that in. And all, you know, I would define myself as an artist, and so learning how to integrate that into the research study was beautiful. And, you know, now looking at, I am the researcher. Like, it's fun. I find it playful and, you know, really connecting in with all the different areas. For example, with sensuality, I'm really interested in now connecting with the elders and in our communities, and, you know, for instance, people who are in group homes, you know, and seeing, like, really expanding my view of what sensuality and what sexuality is, and knowing that every one of us can tap into that regardless of our physical capacities or mental capacities. So really learning how to be in a different way with my world. Yeah.
So in a way, my answer is connected to the previous answer, and has to do with the idea of moving research and work in a way that can help people to overcome prejudice about this ways of knowing, this ways of healing, these ways of gathering in community. So for example, in that book that I was referring to, this man says in all human cultures in any time of history, we've used consciousness modification in order to address healing, well-being, and societal regulation. The only thing is that in this paradigm, Euro-American paradigm, we have a different agenda. We use consciousness modification in order to regulate a neurochemical imbalance, cope with the symptoms, while with other kind of pharmacological intervention and consciousness modification, we aim at developing, you know, that self-reflexive understanding of our story, of our people's stories, of our healing process. And so I think that to do this kind of research is important to show that we're moving to the time where the one and only absolute Euro-American paradigm needs to be, you know, expanded and needs to integrate other epistemologies that come from different ways of knowing and healing, so that as a human people we can move forward to a new stage of our way of being with one another, and to, you know, with nature, and to rear our children with hope for the future, basically.
Thank you. Thank you all. I sit here privileged with these three women up here in the front of the room. You are embodying what you shared with us tonight. Each and every one, you can tell by the passion with which they're speaking, by the articulateness about why they did what they did, how they've integrated their experiences personally and professionally. They put themselves out. These are risk takers. These are healers. These are women empowering themselves to make a difference in the world. It's awesome to sit here and hear you three speak together. And I'd like to ask if one of you, this is totally unrehearsed, I'm going to ask them this spontaneously, would one of you like to offer a prayer to end this ceremony that we have just had, from any of the traditions that you've been part of? Okay.
I'd just like to sing a song for the Tekoja. And the Tekoja means the grandchildren. So the reason we're all doing this is for the generations to come. And one of the most touching things at the Three Rivers Lodge yesterday, there was a man, an alcoholic man with his daughter, and he and his daughter sang together in the lodge. So, but I'll sing this song. This is a song for the Tekoja, for the grandchildren. This is Cherokee. Unchi mai yo 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 yo, 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 unchi mai yo wani wichi hiana, hey hey away.
you all for coming. And don't hurry, we have this room for another half an hour, and if you're lucky enough, they might talk to you afterwards. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.